The inspirational leader is fair with everyone. And this is not the same as being consistent, because consistent is about you changing from one day to the next. But fairness is about being fair with each person. But I think fairness is quite tricky. I've been thinking about this because I think being fair with each person might mean treating them a little bit differently. And I'll explain what I mean. So I think you should push each person equally, but some can go further than others. So a really capable person might need to be pushed a bit harder than somebody who's struggling. And I think fairness is the amount you push them, not the amount you expect them to do. And similarly, giving each person the amount of support that they need. So some people need more support than others, and I don't think it's unfair to give more support to the person who needs more support. But fairness would be giving each person the right amount of support that they need. I think it's reasonable to expect an equal amount of effort from everybody. I would expect a high amount of effort from everyone. So you might get different levels of results from different people, but I would expect them all to put in the same amount of effort. And so that's another way of thinking about fairness. And I think you should have absolutely the same rules for everyone. So timekeeping, for example, should be the same for everybody. And health and safety rules, you've got to wear the safety gear. That's a non-negotiable rule. And it would be really unfair if you said, oh, well, yeah, Fred doesn't have to wear his hard hat because he's very skilled and he's been here for years. Or Fred can turn up late occasionally because, he's my friend. That would be totally unfair. Although, what if you said that Fred can turn up late occasionally because he's got quite an unreliable car? Would that be okay? And I'm thinking that things like timekeeping, I don't think you should make allowances. I think you should say, no, those are the rules. He's got to find a way to always be on time. Because if you start thinking, well, he lives further away, or him and his wife have got a new baby, where will it end? Everybody's got a reason to bend the rules. So I think those basic rules of things like timekeeping and safety and sickness and those sorts of rules have to be the same for everybody, and you've got to be fair, and you can't start letting people off for reasons there, I personally feel. And I think you should have the same level of caring for everybody. You should care equally about everyone. Now, this is difficult because there are going to be people who you like and people who you don't like because of personality reasons and things. But you've got to try to force yourself to care equally for everybody. And I think you should spend equal attention on all the people who work for you. So this is the amount of time you spend with them and the amount of communication that you give them. That should be equal for everybody. Now, some people may need more time and some people might want more communication. But don't start neglecting people thinking, oh, well, she's really good. She doesn't need much attention because she's so good at her job, so I won't spend time on her. Because then she will start to feel it's unfair. So I think trying to put out equal amounts of attention and communication and time is another aspect of fairness. So I think fairness is actually one of the most difficult things for a leader to do, but I think it's really key. We hate it when things are unfair. And I've just got to quickly tell you about an experiment done with some monkeys that I thought was fantastic. What they did was they got the monkey to press a button and they would give him a piece of apple. Press the button, give him the apple. The monkey loved it. It was fine. And then in the next cage along, and there were just some bars so the monkey could see the other monkey, they taught him to do the same trick. But then what they did was they started giving him grapes instead of apple. And monkeys love grapes. They much prefer grapes to apple. So the second monkey's pressing the button and getting grapes. And the first monkey's going, you could see him thinking, he's getting grapes. Then they went back to the first monkey, and when he pressed the button, they gave him a piece of apple. And the monkey took the apple and he threw it back at the experimenter. I don't want your stupid apple. And yet, just 5 minutes before, he'd been delighted to be given apple. But now the other one's getting grapes. He's thinking, well, that's unfair. So fairness is absolutely built in, even to monkeys. It's built into all of us. Children are obsessed with fairness. Little toddlers. It's not fair. So fairness is absolutely vital. So when we get to these more sophisticated things like how much attention somebody gets, the rule still applies. And if they think they're getting more attention than me, it's not fair. I think if you are going to give somebody more attention or time, maybe it's worth explaining it to the other person and saying, I'm going to spend more time with them because they need help on this new thing. But obviously, if you need any help, come to me and I'll be there for you. So rather than wait until they complain, you could explain why you're allocating something differently, because fairness is an obsession that people have. And just a final aspect of fairness that's quite tricky is adjusting to people's personality. So some people want to be told more detail and some people don't. And it's not unfair to spend more time explaining the detail to the person who wants it. And some people want a higher level of challenge. And is it unfair to give them more challenge? The answer is no, because that's what they want. And some people are more obsessed with excitement, or some people want empathy. They want you to be their friend. And you might need to spend more time with them in order to become their friend and make them feel feel safe and make them feel part of the team. So you're allocating different behaviors to these people who work for you. And I don't think that's unfair. I think that's adapting to their personality. I think that's different. But what you're doing that's fair is you're giving each of the people the type of attention that is best for them. So it's like an equal adjustment for everybody who works for you. So I'd like you now to just think about this whole subject of fairness and think, is there anybody who works for me who I neglect a little bit? Is there anybody who I'm not really fair with? Is there anybody I push too hard or I don't communicate enough with? Perhaps because I don't really like them, to the point where it's not exactly fair. So think about fairness, because it's absolutely key. So that's the end of the section on security. And I know security is not very exciting, but it is important. If you don't get it right, then you're never going to progress to the next stages of inspiring people. So they have to have that safe foundation that you build everything else on. If they don't feel secure, they'll just retreat into their shell and be obsessed with just trying to get security back again. So security is what's called a hygiene factor. So if you give people more and more security, you won't get any more from them. So there's a limit to how much you need to give them, but if they don't have security, it will worry them. So the key is to give them plenty of security and then move on to the next stages. And that's what we're going to come to next.